Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Mark Turner. I'm the founder of UltraSwim 33.3. I have a background in events in lots of different sports. Cycling in the past, we created the Haute Route, which if you're a cyclist at all, you would know, a multi-day cycling race. I worked in sailing for professional sailing for 25 years, 30 years. Got involved with trail running with UTMB. In Chamonix, with my old company, OC Sport. So I have 40 odd years in sport, and I was always a swimmer. And in before COVID, but didn't start it going till after COVID. Always had the dream to take what we did in the Haute Route, which is a multi-day cycling race, and put it into swimming. And that's what we launched UltraSwim 33.3 in the first little test event in 2022. I think, Brian, you came in 2023.
Yes.
And when we did our first full event. And I live in Switzerland, in Lausanne, where the Olympics Committee is based, surrounded by federations and lots of sporty people. And I still like to try and swim a bit, but obviously this is now taken, as usual, when you organize something in a sport, you end up not doing it quite so much. But I'm still hanging in there, did a 10K a couple of weeks ago. So just to refresh keep me remembering how what it's like out there is the main reason. So UltraSwim 33.3 wanted to create something a little bit different to what's out there already. Obviously, swimming has its big challenges, its big English Channel crossing Catalina and these kind of challenges, solo challenges. And it has lots of one-day events, lots of like Ocean Man and obviously local one-day events, whether it be they 5K, 10K or more. But I wanted to create something that sits a little bit between the two, so challenging but accessible. And I guess the adventure swim races is what we call them, because we're trying to get away from the swimming around the buoys in a circle to get to 10K, or like the elite circuit does. And try and actually discover the regions that we take the swimming to. We create the 33.3, which I'll come on to as to why it's 33.3 in a second. We wanted to create a whole new category and then have a number of those events around the world. So where we go is important rather than necessarily the specific, trying to do the laps, so location, not laps. 4 days. Every event's the same. It's always a long weekend, 4-day long weekend. Yes, obviously swimming is always a bit of a solo sport, but the real essence of UltraSwim 33.3 is to create the community and be a bit of a team effort. And Brian will attest to the fact that by the time you get to the end of these events, it's more like a team swim than it is a solo swim in terms of the energy that builds between people. That's probably its most special thing, and the impact that it can have on people. And I wouldn't be doing it probably if that element wasn't so strong. If you compare it with a road marathon, we're a multi-stage ultra trail run rather than a road marathon in that sense. And we've tried to make this the level of difficulty challenging, but absolutely doable, and doable for many people who don't think at the beginning it's doable. And that's probably most people coming to the event, probably a third of the people that are convinced they're not actually going to make it at the beginning, and they pretty well all do. So, and that's quite often due to the team energy that comes across. And then rather than it be a turn up, sort yourself out kind of event, we wrap the whole thing in really great hotels with a full support package. So you feel a bit like you're a pro in terms of everything that gets put into it. We're really trying to look after people. Our average age of competitor is 50. We have in the last event from 14 years old to 74, but there's a huge range of people at the event. It's very, very diverse. So why 33.3? This year is the 150th, in August, the 150th anniversary of Captain Webb crossing the English Channel. That distance is actually 33.23, I think, kilometers, but 33.3 is a nicer number, let's say. So we go for 33.3 kilometers, which is the shortest theoretical distance if you go point to point between England and France. Obviously, people swim a lot further when they actually do the English Channel, but it's a great backdrop and great story. Behind that's the distance, and we get quite obsessive at the event of achieving that 33.3. With the swimmers, with the organization, the weather can throw lots of curveballs over a 4-day event, but actually the objective of trying to get that 33.3 really brings people together. Sometimes we have to change the planning, get up earlier, everything, in order to get there. But actually, people get really motivated. No, we've got to nail this. We've got to nail this in order to get the finisher droplet at the end. Voted the Wales Event of the Year in 2020 for 2024, which we're quite proud of. Great to get that kind of recognition. But I think this quote, these quotes really sum up the event and the reviews. The top one in particular, I think, we have between 150 up to 200 people in an event. Most of them don't know each other when they come, and in particular have a great quote from a guy who's quite severely autistic, and he said, "I've really struggled to go to events. I go to an event on my own. I go home. I go to an event with a friend. I go home with a friend, or I go to an event on my own. I go home on my own." I came to UltraSwim and I went home with 30 what I feel like are lifelong friends, and I think that for me is the biggest thing about the event, is when people at the end of the event there's this huge, bonding between people. Hard to understand without doing the event, but it's the ups and downs of a multi-day event. You're following it, you follow each other's emotions up and down. You may feel exhausted. You may feel, how am I going to do the next day? And people help each other, and it's that really is really quite special about the event. So we tried to go into really iconic locations, and when we get there, we tried to do things a little bit differently. This picture is actually, again, you'll remember as Brian, but into a submarine pen on the last day, which is a submarine pen from the Yugoslav era. We don't go too far in. Not everybody's that happy in being in a big dark space, but the experience is quite something. Usually with some heavy metal music playing inside there, just to up the feeling as well. So it's much more than just going, turning up at a swim event. We'll try to treat you like a pro. Post-swim sports massages, finish line lunches. We'll look after you from the minute you arrive at the airport, with the transfers, in particular Montenegro, where we'll take you from whichever airport you come in and look after you. The idea is to send you home in some way a better swimmer, whatever that is for you, whether that's because you've achieved a goal, a distance goal or a performance goal, or how you relate to the rest of the swimmers, or what you've learned from our ambassadors. One of our ambassadors in Montenegro is actually Melanie Barrett, who is the first blind person to swim the English Channel. And we have a whole array of different, interesting people with great backstories at the event. We bring in top physio at the on site. We have lots of other stretching and other things going on each day. We have a huge range of swimmers. The split in Montenegro last time was 40-60 people in skins and wetsuits. There's no loss of kudos in our world for wearing a wetsuit. There are two categories in the results. We have a cut-off time of 2 kilometers an hour. We'll quite often allow some people to push past that if the conditions permit and the logistics permit. But we have from 2 kilometers an hour to some of the ex-elites, the guys at the front. There's a small group at the front hammering it to try and win, and there's perhaps swimming at 4.5k an hour. But there's everything in between. And if you went onto the website into the results section, we have an interactive chart where you can dig in and actually look at all of the speeds of everybody. Look up at which category. But there's a huge range, and that's part of the event. Really big spread. So you don't need to feel that it's not for you in that sense. The way we do it, we split the 33.3 over 5, 6, 7 swims, depending on the venue. In Montenegro, weather permitting, we start with 2 swims on the first day. I think it's 4.5 on one and 4.3 on the other. Just to get things going with a small pause on the first day. That kind of, there's a lot of people that haven't done, a lot of people do these events that have never done more than a 5k swim, and they're taking on 33.3. So that's a way to step into it psychologically on the first day. The second day we'll generally build that up. It's again depends on the weather, but could be around 8-kilometer swim. And on Montenegro in particular, we after the time swim, we have lunch on an island, which is like a 5-star hotel island, and we stop on that island, we swim and we have lunch all together, and then we swim around it a couple of k just to help with the distance, but untimed, which is quite a nice time for everyone to get together and swim in a bit more of a relaxed. And then that leads up to day 3. We're always trying to do a marathon, so always trying to do 10-kilometer plus swim. In Montenegro, it's generally about 10.5. Get on the wild Adriatic coast if the weather permits. And day 4, we kind of say, "Oh, don't worry about day 4. It's always it's the small one at the end." It generally ends up being a little bit more spicy than people are expecting for whatever reasons. And in Montenegro, we do a two-country crossing. So we cross from Croatia to Montenegro, 2 kilometer crossing, and then finish off on the coast of Montenegro with something like 4.5K. So that format is can be scary on the one hand for those that are not used to doing the distances, but it's equally physiologically it works really, really well because the first day people tend to always go a bit too hard, let's say, and the end of it they're thinking, oh well, how am I going to do this this whole thing? The second day you feel a bit tired, you get this overcompensation effect physiologically, and and it's usually a bit of a tougher day. And almost every single person is stronger on day 3, even though you may be a bit tired, you may be a bit worn. Multi-day races like this create a few more issues in terms of friction with the salt and different things than a one-day swim. But by day 3, it's incredible how everyone is just stronger mentally and physically, even though they may be tired in a tired body. And day 4, of course, by the time you get there, you're not gonna give up on day 4. So, and the energy of everybody by then is crazy positive. So everyone gets pulled across those finish lines. We do have 2 shorter formats for anyone who perhaps, for whatever reason, hasn't had the time to train, or they've not done those distances before. We try to push people to give the 33.3 a go, even if they're nervous about it. But there is an 11.1 format and a 22.2 format where the swimmers will swim part of what I just showed on the previous slide. So a 22.2, for example, will swim 5K a day usually in total, and we'll do an 8K as their biggest swim rather than 10K. And 11.1 again down to 2 or 3K a day. We only have a limited number of people that can do it, but Montenegro is one of the events where we really try to make that work, and so it's an option. Sometimes the partner of the main swimmer, let's say, who still swims but doesn't want to take on such a big challenge, it's a good way for a couple sometimes to be swimming. We obviously, safety is number 1. It's a race, it's a challenge, it's lots of different things to different people, but the safety is primarily. We have a big wrapper of kayak safety, professional guides around the swimmers. In Montenegro last year, I think we had 38 kayaks, and then there's about 12 to 15 boats, a medical boat, a race direction boat, all sorts of other support vessels. So there's a big wrapper around. We also have one of the few events to do this, but we have full live tracking of all the swimmers. You swim with a tow float, and in the tow float there is a tracker, and that actually allows us to the top right hand corner allows us to see if any swimmers are outside of a 50-meter circle of a kayak, for example. So that tracking is a big part of what we do in terms of the safety. It allows us to keep all the safety assets in the right place. So as I say, lots of different kinds of swimmers. I think we've got we have active triathletes, we have retired kind of Ironman triathletes, if you like. We have swim runners, we have masters swimmers that are venturing into open water for the first time, or one of the first times. We have people that have come to the sport in the last few years, you're relatively new to the sport, directly into open water. All types, shapes, sizes, ambitions, speeds, and that's a lovely thing about the event. Lovely thing about open water swimming is this community of different, very diverse people that are all united around the swimming. So it's very precious to us. We have about 30 to 40% of the swimmers bring a partner. The partners can do their own thing if they want, but we have a special package called the F3 package where we allow them to get involved. We get them involved enough. They'll be on a boat for a lot of the time. They'll see some of the swimming, but we won't make them sit there and watch you for 4 hours while you're swimming it. While you're swimming a 10K or whatever. They'll dip in, dip out, and it's super popular. They may go off and swim themselves in a particular area, then they'll see some more of the swimming, and then they'll meet you at lunch and spend the rest of the day with you after the swim. So it's a very popular part of our program. But you can do your own thing. You can sign up the SF3 package, or actually we have some of those people that prefer to be super active and end up volunteering on the event. They have to be people that are ready to get up early in the morning. It's a pretty early start from the organisation side of things. But they usually have an amazing time, to be honest. And then we swim the last day. They will swim the final few hundred meters with you if they wish, which is a great way of us finishing it. So usually the end of it, partners who haven't taken on the whole challenge feel very included, which is pretty unusual in sports events where you're usually a bit not really considered by the organizer very much in that. We're very focused on the sustainability side. Obviously, we have we have an event that people travel to, so we take that on board. But we try to limit all of our impact in terms of the event. We compensate with what we have to with sea trees, which I think is based out where you are. In fact, I think the Sustainable Surf Foundation. We are obsessive about single-use plastic and eliminating it from the event. So we complete ban on anything that is single-use plastic anywhere, anytime during the event. We're doing a lot of work on trying to have no toxic suntan lotions, no petrol-based products used. All those things we spend a lot of time on trying to improve the impact of our event. Montenegro at the beginning of October. We call it the Fjord to the Sea edition because it's we have these two amazing bits of scenery where we're based inside the fjord, which is usually very calm, even when it's rough weather, which gives us some great options. And then most of the swimming will swim out on the Adriatic coast, so which is very much wild, open sea. Possible to in terms of the timing of the event. Obviously, you're flying a lot further to get there, but it's possible to arrive on the Thursday. We make it so you can arrive on the Thursday and you can leave on the Monday afternoon. So there's a bunch of different options from that point of view. Obviously, you're flying to amazing part of the world, and if someone has more time, you have Kotor and the Montenegrin mountains right behind that we're right in, that really worth a stay, and equally just across the border, Dubrovnik, which is a beautiful old city if you don't know it already, which if it's worth spending an extra night in both places, it's pretty cool to do. Montenegro sits in the Balkans on the east side of the Adriatic Sea, opposite Italy. There are two airports that we fly into that are really nearby: Dubrovnik in Croatia and Tivat Airport in Montenegro. You can fly to both actually from where you are. And the good thing about Tivat is you have no border to cross, and the border sometimes can be a bit tricky in terms of time. It takes a bit of time. Montenegro uses the euro, but it's not, and it's in NATO, but it's not in the EU. They'd like to be, but they're not for now. Whereas Croatia is fully in the EU. If you have a Schengen visa for Croatia, it works to get into Montenegro. So whilst it's not in the EU, it feels like you're in the EU when you're there. The course in Montenegro, we go around this something called the Ljutica Peninsula. Absolutely stunning, still very wild. We try to make the courses quite interesting. As you can see, this is actually Croatia waters, and on the final day, leaving Croatian waters before crossing the channel 2 kilometers to Montenegro side. We have an amazing team of kayakers who will become your best friends. It's beautiful water. Temperature-wise, the water, I'm sorry, it's in centigrade. Don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but 20, 21, 22, 23 is what we've experienced in the last. We have three very different years in terms of weather, but the water's north of 20 degrees, which I'm not sure what it is in Fahrenheit, but one of you will know that. But it's a great temperature for swimming.
That's warm for us. That's like 69,
Okay, that's good.
70, yeah.
This is Maminal Island. This is where we actually stop for lunch on day 2 and then swim around after the swim, which is why you can see a couple of people waving in the picture. They're not head down and racing around because it's a bit of a relaxed time swim, untimed swim that just gets us some extra kilometers in. And yeah, some great finish line emotion, which is what it's all about for us. This is the finish line in a little secluded bay where there's just us and a whole lot of emotion on the final line. The course does change with the weather. You can actually on the version I'll send you to follow up, you can actually click through into Google Earth. It's already, all the options are already in there. So we share a lot of information. This is what we're generally doing in Montenegro, going around this Ljutica Peninsula, and the one in yellow is their final swim with a quite a tough channel crossing. There's a lot of tide, a lot of current in that gap, which makes it quite interesting. And we're based up in the top of the picture in Milinja, part of Herceg-Novi, which is one of the main towns in Montenegro. And as you can see, you've got the bay, the fjords, the backdrop is all mountains, and then at the bottom of this, that's quite exposed to the sea. So lots of options with the weather and with the course. And we base ourselves in this really super hotel with, I think, probably the best breakfast in the world, at least it's from a swimmer perspective. Brian's nodding his head. So worth getting up an extra few minutes early to make sure you get the breakfast in before the start. We are starting early. It gets light about 7 a.m. At this time of year in Montenegro. Obviously, we're running into the almost into the autumn. So it's an early start, but a great breakfast, great hotel, and we have a full buyout of this hotel. So the only people in the hotel are people doing UltraSwim 33.3 this year. So everything's right in front. The boat, we board boats. First day we start from the hotel. The other days we're starting out, go on boats, and we'll start jump into the water from the boats because we're trying to do as much as possible point to point and starting where we finished the previous day. It doesn't always work out like that, but that's the concept. So, but it's a super base and a super village, and we have a whole bunch of different room categories and options and packages within that. We've got great reviews. We're very conscious of our reviews. Always good input and feedback. We've always got things that we can do better, but we have really do have amazing feedback, and in terms of emotion, on the emotional side in particular, just people. So many people go away feeling that they've experienced something, that's kind of clocked them on in their life in some way, and that's great. That's our reel. It's just a short video, which is the final day last year. We even had a wedding proposal on that one. I was in Montenegro last year, which on the finish line, which was from one was swimming and one was in the F3 part of the package, and they both swam in together. And then he proposed to her. She was the swimmer and he was the partner, and he
Wow.
proposed to her on the finish line, which was really, really cool. She had no idea that was coming. So there you go. I mean, it's an interesting, it's a tough event, tough enough to push people out of their comfort zone, but the rewards are just amazing. So I know, Brian, you've obviously done it.
Hey, Brian, let us know. What's it like?
Well, it's wonderful. Montenegro is beautiful. I'd never been there before, and I always wanted to. Like, for those that know me, I usually pick an event, a country that I want to visit, and then I find an event. So Montenegro was just great. It's the cleanest water I've ever swam in. You can see all the way down to the bottom. There's fish along the way. You swim along the wild coast. You just swim along the bank, and you just look down, and there's no sand. It's different. Like, it's not like the beaches here where the waves pick up the sand and make it murky and make it dirty. But it's not about the swim. For me, it was all about the people. And everyone was there. Everyone had a different story. Yeah, at the top there were the few elite. My year, We had a couple world champions, former world champions, current champions, a couple world record holders, and those were the guys leading the front. So in any race, there's always the competitive guys, but they're only competitive on the race course. Then the rest of us were just there to have a good time, and a lot of age groupers. But then everyone had a story. There were a lot of people that had never started swimming until COVID. So when COVID happened and they were stuck at home, they couldn't go to the gym, they couldn't do their normal activities, everything was canceled. But a lot of people live near lakes, because in England and Europe, everyone has a lot of lakes. We have the ocean. So some of the people had never swam open water. And I was like, oh my God, like here I am, I have the ocean, but like that's scary. Like for us, that's just a regular Sunday swim. Granted, it's super long, but one woman I remember, she had never done an open water event, and she only knew how to do breaststroke. She did 33 kilometers breaststroke, and on the 10K day, she was either the last or second to last to finish. Everybody stays by the finish line, and the camaraderie is there. Like we all were there to watch her finish. Meals were fantastic. Everyone was excited at the lunch times when you're done. Breakfast was amazing. It was awesome. The swimming itself, it's doable, totally doable. You break it up, and it is a race, but it's not a race.
35 to 40 nationalities at each event. The US participation is actually in 2025 is 15%, which is like increasing all the time actually. UK, as you said, Brian, is the biggest nationality, about a 30%, but then you really have people from all over the world. So
yeah, and the water's warm. Like I did it without a wetsuit, and that was so nice. And the nice thing about the Adriatic is it's not that salty of a sea. So you don't have to worry so much about salt rash and stuff like you do in other oceans. And I wasn't cold at all. Like I was glad. It felt nice to be, I think it was maybe 69 to 71 degrees around there. It wasn't even a question. I didn't even bring a wetsuit. You didn't have to carry your own fuel with you. So Precision had gels. They had these these blocks, these gummy chews, bananas, and their drink and water. So you go to this it's basically the back of a big boat.
You can grab hold of the boat. Actually, in our rules, if someone needed to get out and take a pause on the feed station boat, they can. So in general, you can stop, you can hang on the boat. There's usually platforms on the back. We actually have a giant paddle as well now that we're using to like a table on the side of the boat from red paddles that we're using. However, on the marathon swim day, we do have an option to swim it under MSF rules. So no neoprene, no watch, no traditional swim challenge rules. And in that one, we actually then have fishing nets. So because you can't touch the boat or a kayak or anything. And some people opt, I think in Brian's event, I think actually 30 odd people opted to do that. Give them a different hat, and then we can manage the rules on that. And then they get on the Marathon Swim Federation database, as a long swim database, as an event.